I'm Liz Faublis, and this is Currents. What the church has to say about Governor Cuomo's budget proposals. Plus, getting back to the fundamentals of faith.
What is Christianity? It's an open question for Christians, and it's an open question for those who seem to have no curiosity whatsoever towards Christianity.
And we'll head to Astoria to visit our latest School of the Week.
We're looking forward to Catholic Schools Week the end of this month. We have a great week planned, fun activities for the children. We start off with our open house on the 29th.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. This week, Governor Andrew Cuomo introduced his 2012-2013 $132 billion state budget. In his address, Cuomo touched on issues including job creation, economic stimulus, education, and even abortion rights. Governor Cuomo encouraged lawmakers to stay the course in their approach to policy, pointing to decisions about hot-button issues like legalizing same-sex marriage. Now, the governor's budget, which the legislature must pass before April 1st, may fall short on some key issues in its current outline, according to our guest tonight. He is Dennis Paus, Communications Director of the New York State Catholic Conference. He joins me by phone from Albany. Dennis, welcome to Currents.
Hi, Liz. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
Thank you for joining us. Well, you know what? You took a look at the New York State budget. You were pleased with some issues, displeased with others, and you give him a needs improvement, if you will, on some issues. We have Governor Cuomo saying, we began the year by closing a $10 billion deficit on time. Do you give him a nod at least for that much?
Oh, absolutely. And not just the governor, but the entire legislature. Look, we know this is a very, very difficult time fiscally for our state, and we understand that. And so difficult choices have to be made. And I will applaud the governor and the legislature both in taking a very sober look at this and not making sort of willy-nilly slashes, and also recognizing that sort of they can't just spend our way into further debt. And so it's been an interesting process, but like you said, there's certainly areas where we would like to see more funding, but at the same time, we understand, too, that the resources are very limited.
Well, the governor's saying that he will fight for passage of the Reproductive Health Act. This is where it gets sticky. What does that measure do, and where does the church stand on that?
We are adamantly opposed to that bill, and the governor, in his prepared remarks in the State of the State, mentioned that he would fight to support that bill. He did not actually say it. He cut that paragraph from his spoken remarks. But we know that in the past he has indicated his support. This bill would go way beyond what Roe versus Wade has done. It would declare abortion in New York State to be a fundamental right, and would mean that there could be no restrictions really throughout the 9 months of pregnancy. We find it very troubling and concerning because certainly most people, even those who disagree with the church on the right to abortion, most people believe that there ought to be some common sense restrictions, certainly after the first trimester and beyond. And another real troubling aspect of the Reproductive Health Act is it would allow non-physicians to provide abortions, physician's assistants, nurse practitioner type things, which we think is dangerous for women. And it would also could potentially any institution, including Catholic ones, that are licensed or receive funding from the state, could be forced, under the language of the bill, to refer people for abortions or even to allow abortions to be performed there. So it's really an obnoxious bill, for lack of a better term. It's been around since it was originally introduced by Eliot Spitzer, and it became quite a cause célèbre right before his fall from grace. And we are hoping that we're not going to have another fight on our hands on that one, as we did about 3 years ago.
Okay, Dennis, you know what? The governor, who is Catholic, walks an extremely fragile line with the Catholic Church, as you know, to say the least, with his support of same-sex marriage and abortion rights, stances that are sharply at odds with church teaching. So this should not have come as much of a surprise to you, his stance on the issues that you just noted.
A surprise? No. The concern is certainly if it's risen to the level of being included in a State of the State speech. That's something more. I mean, the governor's father was always very clear that even though he supported abortion rights, he always sort of made it clear that he was uncomfortable with it at the same time. Governor Cuomo doesn't appear at this point to have such discomfort. I mean, if he's supporting something like the Reproductive Health Act, that goes beyond simply saying that women have the right to choose, and it goes into something more. It's really an ideological bill that only really the most radical abortion proponents would see as a good thing.
Dennis, I want to move on to education really quickly. You give the governor credit for easing the pressure of MTA payroll taxes by offering religious and independent schools exemptions. He also increased funding to cover expenditures. However, you have some reservations?
Well, most of the news on education is good. Our reservations are only that we know that there's more work to do, but we really do give him credit for both of the things he mentioned. The MTA tax was a tax to bail out the MTA in the New York metropolitan area a couple of years ago, and every employer has to pay that tax on payroll. The only ones who didn't were public schools. Our schools, Catholic schools and other independent and religious schools, did have to pay that tax. And, you know, as you know, these schools operate on such a small margin that even, you know, any new tax on their payroll or anything, it's just going to require more tuition, and it's going to be harder on parents to meet those tuition bills. And so the legislature and the governor got together and exempted our schools from that tax to be equal to the public schools. The other thing he did is restore full funding for reimbursement for mandates. The state forces us to do certain things like administer statewide tests, report attendance, take attendance throughout the school day as students move around and report that information, proctor exams, all these things that cost, you know, with teacher pay, millions of dollars when you multiply it by all of our schools. And in the past few years, we have not been getting full reimbursement for these because of the fiscal crisis, even though statutorily the state is required to provide full reimbursement for what they mandate us to do. The governor has reestablished that precedent, at least partially, on full reimbursement for those services, and so we're very grateful for that, and we think that it's the right thing to do, and we're just hoping that as the economic climate continues, we can also get back some of the money that we're owed from when we weren't being reimbursed.
All right, Dennis, before we wrap up, I want to mention that the governor laid out a three-part plan to combat problems here in New York. The first was the next phase in our economic blueprint for growth. We want to address that. A reimagined government that can make our plans a reality. And finally, a New York vision for a progressive future. As the voice of the New York State Catholic Conference, what would you say is missing from this strategy, if anything?
Well, we have to always remember, and the bishops remind us, that the budget is a moral document in that it lays out the sort of the priorities of what's important for us as a people. And we have to remember that especially in dire economic times, those at the bottom of the economic ladder cannot bear more than they already are. We can't balance budgets on the backs of the poor. So we want to remind the governor and the legislature to that those in need, those who are hungry, those who are on the verge of losing their housing, those without work, they can't bear any more cuts in programs that they need to take care of their kids, to feed their kids, and to stay in their homes. And so what's missing is, in that term progressive, we have to always remember progressive also means caring for those who are unable to care for themselves, who don't have the means to care for themselves properly. And remember that everyone has human dignity and that the budget must reflect that.
All right, Dennis, thank you. That's the final word. Dennis Powell, thank you for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
I'm always happy to be on, Liz. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Okay, stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Big news from the presidential campaign trail, but will it mean anything in the end? We'll find out and get the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Liz Faublas. Coming up later, a Queens school is in the early stages of a transformation. We'll hear all about it. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, the new numbers are in, and it looks like there is a new winner in the Iowa caucuses. A recount shows Rick Santorum actually edged out Mitt Romney by 34 votes in the first decision of the Republican presidential primary season. Officials discovered inaccuracies in 131 Iowa precincts. That prompted the recount. Results in 8 other precincts are missing, and officials tell the Des Moines Register that they will not be recovered nor certified. The news had Santorum, a former Pennsylvania senator and one of 2 Catholics in the race, claiming a surprise victory. All this on the same day we learned that there is one less candidate among the GOP presidential hopefuls.
I have come to the conclusion that there is no viable path forward for me in this 2012 campaign. Therefore, today, I am suspending my campaign and endorsing Newt Gingrich for President of the United States.
And Perry called Gingrich, the other Catholic in the race, a conservative visionary with the ability to rally and captivate the conservative movement. In a statement, Gingrich says he is humbled and honored to have Perry's support. And last night, 4 candidates taking shots at frontrunner Mitt Romney at a pro-life forum in South Carolina. Perry, who was still in the race at the time, said Romney's change from being pro-choice to pro-life was one of convenience. Gingrich, meanwhile, said Romney wrote Planned Parenthood into Massachusetts health care reform legislation. The attacks came the same week that the Romney campaign released a video in which former U.S. Ambassador to the Vatican, Mary Ann Glendon, defends Romney's record on life issues. Colorado's bishops are calling on Catholics to take action on the issue of marriage. The bishops are urging people to contact elected officials to ask them to protect marriage as a union between a man and a woman. The statement follows news of proposals in Colorado that would legalize same-sex civil unions. Meanwhile, a bishop in Utah is calling for renewed efforts to pass federal immigration reform. Salt Lake City Bishop John Wester is encouraging the creation of compacts or position statements to push for the reform at the federal level. He cited Utah's compact, which states that the immigration is best addressed at that federal level. Wester says a system in which each state addresses immigration in its own way is untenable. Wester gave the keynote address at a conference in Salt Lake City sponsored by the U.S. bishops. Turning to the Sudan, where kidnappers have failed to keep their promise to release 2 priests. A source tells the Vatican news agency Fidesz that a militia group attacked the parish and took the priests on Sunday night. The source says that the kidnapping does not appear to be politically motivated. Well, conversion and reconciliation, 2 themes for a special week of prayer that is now underway. Rome Reports has more.
Benedict XVI spoke about the unity of Christians during the general audience in the Vatican's Paul VI Audience Hall. It marked the beginning of the Week of Prayer for Christian Unity, a worldwide fellowship of over 300 churches that try to find a common witness.
Oggi inizia la settimana della preghiera per l'unità dei cristiani, che da oltre un secolo celebrata ogni anno da cristiani di tutte le chiese e comunità ecclesiali.
The Week of Prayer for Christian Unity was originally founded in 1908 by a priest named Paul Watson and then received the blessing of Pope Pius X. Benedict XVI explained the importance not only of its history, but also its role today.
Faith in Christ and interior conversion, both individual and communal, must constantly accompany our prayer for Christian unity.
Before some 8,000 pilgrims, the Pope also noted that this week of unity plays an important role in the new evangelization.
And Pope Benedict is continuing his meetings with U.S. bishops. Speaking with a group of bishops from the Mid-Atlantic region, the Pope expressed concern about hostility toward Christianity in the U.S. Benedict said Catholics need to realize the, quote, grave threats to the church by a radical secularism. The group of bishops included Washington's Cardinal Donald Wuerl and Cardinal-designate Edwin O'Brien, the head of the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre. And the Pope has appointed a bishop from our area to a new post. Benedict has named William Skurla as the new Archbishop for the Byzantine Catholic Church in Pittsburgh. Skurla is currently a bishop for the Byzantine Church in Passaic, New Jersey. The Minnesota native has a philosophy degree from Columbia University. The Byzantine Catholic Church is an Eastern Rite in communion with Rome. And an Italian newspaper is reporting Pope Benedict may meet with former Cuban President Fidel Castro during the Pope's visit to Cuba at the end of March. Now, the paper says Castro's health will determine whether the meeting actually takes place. Various reports in recent years have indicated Castro's health is failing. According to the Italian newspaper, he may meet with the Pope when Benedict visits with current Cuban President Raul Castro. Well, a new website is up and running ahead of a church-sponsored conference on sex abuse. The conference, sponsored by the Pontifical Gregorian University, will take place next month in Rome. It's aimed at informing bishops and other religious superiors about resources available to address sex abuse. Speakers will include former San Francisco Archbishop Cardinal William Levada, who is currently the head of the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of faith. And the Vatican's news website is a popular attraction online. The Pontifical Council for Social Communication says the site, located online at news.va, gets more than 10,000 daily visitors. The head of the Communications Council told EWTN News that the results are quite positive for a site that's been online only a few months. News.va debuted in June of last year. Well, stay tuned. There's more currents ahead. Coming up, what is Christianity? We get some deep answers to that simple question.
When we talk about Christianity, it's only a reduction of this event.
Welcome back. Well, today we're asking, what is Christianity? It may seem like an easy question, but if we think about it, the answer may not be so simple. An Italian priest tackled that question in a book that goes back to the origins of the Christian faith. That priest, Father Luigi Giussani, was the founder of Communion and Liberation, a Catholic movement with members around the globe, including right here in the Diocese of Brooklyn. And although Giussani died in 2005, his legacy lives on. This past weekend, Communion and Liberation co-sponsored New York Encounter, an annual event that tackles some deep social and religious topics. At that event, the current head of the movement delved deeper into his predecessor's work and what it means for today's Christians.
Christianity needs to encounter the humanity that vibrates in each of us in order to show his whole potential, its whole truth.
Today, Father Caron will discuss one of the most important works by Father Giussani, What is Christianity? Which is an open question. It's an open question for Christians, and it's an open question for those who seem to have no curiosity whatsoever towards Christianity.
We think that we know what Christianity is about, but many times when we talk about Christianity, it's only a reduction of this event. The Christian event has the form of an encounter, a human encounter in the ordinary day-to-day reality.
Esta es la genialidad de Giussani, plantear la pregunta más sencilla que pensamos que todos conocemos. Y sin embargo, cuando él explica qué es el cristianismo como un acontecimiento que es capaz de fascinar la vida, vemos que no es esta la experiencia que muchas personas tienen del cristianismo.
At the origin of the Christian claim is the attempt to define the origin of the faith of Jesus' apostles. In it, I have tried to express the reason why a man can believe in Christ.
Los discípulos que provenían del pueblo judío no tuvieron más remedio que reconocer que lo que tenían delante era tan excepcional que el único modo de explicarle era que allí tenía algo que ver con Dios. Era Dios hecho carne.
The Christian event does not wait for man to change. It does not require preparation or preconditions. It simply breaks in and happens.
It was interesting to me because he spoke on the book of the origin of the Christian claim, you know, and so at first it seems the book is simply about, you know, Christ coming to the apostles, but obviously the origin of the Christian claim, even if I can make the Christian claim today, the origin is that I have to have that same experience that the apostles had.
Growing up Catholic, you have an appreciation for, you know, Christ died for us, etc., and so you kind of know what it's the main, what it's about. But it certainly, there were some points made that kind of revealed more of what it is to be Christian and what Christianity is.
Me gustaría que la gente se fuera a su casa habiendo despertado un poquito de la curiosidad de qué es el cristianismo, que tantos de ellos piensan que ya lo saben, pero que en realidad en muchas ocasiones vivimos de estereotipos que no corresponden a la naturaleza verdadera del cristianismo.
Well, if you're interested in learning more, be sure to check out Father Giussani's book, At the Origin of the Christian Claim. And stay tuned, there's more currents ahead. When we return, how one Queens school is preparing for change.
Change is inevitable. It can be a great opportunity. We're going to be able to rely so much on all they have to bring us and all they have to offer while maintaining the strong Catholic identity that we always have.
Finally tonight, the Diocese of Brooklyn is implementing an education initiative called Preserving the Vision. It's an ongoing process that, as its title implies, is aimed at preserving Catholic education in Brooklyn and Queens for years to come. Now, as part of the process, schools are transitioning to an academy model. This past September, 3 new academies opened, and in Astoria, Queens, one school is getting ready for that transition. That school, Most Precious Blood, is going strong and is looking forward to the change. They are our latest School of the Week.
Most Precious Blood School has been serving the community of Astoria and Long Island City for almost 55 years. We're special because of our age. We're special because we have been going strong ever since. Another thing that makes us special is that we start educating children as early as 18 months old.
We are developing the individual from when they join us in a Mommy Me program at age 2 all the way through age 14. We tried to model as Jesus did and teach them respect and morals and values.
There are children who have been with us from Mommy and Me through 8th grade. We've been a part of their lives for 11 years.
They love the school so much, and their parents, made the choice to keep them here, and we have gotten to know them.
And they're so sad when they have to go, even though we tell them that it's time for them to move on to bigger and better things.
My own 3 children graduated from Most Precious Blood, and my 2 daughters are teachers. My son is a financial analyst. So they've done very well. They went to all good schools, and they really, really, really got a good foundation here.
We are excited at MPB in becoming an academy and preserving the vision because we see that's the future also.
All schools, according to Bishop, will become academies by 2017. The academy transition for students should be a very smooth transition. They won't notice any difference. The teachers and the administration will see a change because rather than being a parish school, being an academy means that you're going to be run by a board.
We'll do fine as an academy. It'll be a wonderful thing for us because we do have wonderful programs here and a lot to offer academically as well as socially.
We think it will continue to make us stronger and give us many more resources.
So it's going to be positive in so many ways and really enriching for us in so many ways. Most Precious Blood School does extremely well academically. Our students last year won approximately $200,000 worth of scholarship money to high schools. That's a phenomenal number.
1/3 of our 8th graders received scholarships to Catholic schools. We have smart boards at our school. Our teachers have taken extensive training in using them. We have 2 science labs, one for the older children, and we're developing one for our nursery and pre-K as of this year. They can be in our indoor gym, our outdoor playground. They have beautiful classrooms with different kinds of centers and equipment. We also have band available for them in Glee Club and Boy Scouts and Scrabble.
We're looking forward to Catholic Schools Week the end of this month. We have a great week planned, fun activities for the children. We start off with our open house on the 29th.
So we really try to allow the child to get involved in things they're interested in.
We're proud of the fact that we have so many students that go out of their way to do things for others, not just academically become proficient, but also become, students that we can be proud of because of who they are.
It will no longer be Most Precious Blood School. It will most likely be Most Precious Blood Academy.
We've been through changes before. When I first came here, at least half the staff were sisters.
And as of a few years ago, the last teachers retired. So now you really have to have a new plan for the future.
Change is inevitable. It can be a great opportunity. We're going to be able to rely so much on all they have to bring us and all they have to offer while maintaining the strong Catholic identity that we always have.
Such a great head start for the kids. Well, that is all for this edition of Currents. Coming up on tomorrow's show, has debate on social issues like abortion and marriage a clash of orthodoxies? A Princeton University professor tackles that question. Until then, be sure to visit us online at currentsny.net. You can also connect with us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for watching and have a good night.